Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about turning powerful ideas into guides you can actually use. And today, we're diving into a whole new blueprint for how you talk to people, one that changes the goal from winning arguments to actually connecting. Think about it. From the moment we're kids, we're basically taught to win arguments, right? In school, at work, everywhere. But communication expert Jefferson Fischer says, what if that's completely backward? What if that very drive to win is what's causing all the disconnection in our most important relationships? So that leads to a huge question. If arguments aren't for winning, then what on earth are they for? Getting this right can seriously change every difficult conversation you have for the rest of your life. Okay, let's get into it. First, we have to understand the trap that we all fall into. We think we're fighting with our partner, our parents, or our boss. But the truth? We're fighting the wrong battle completely. And this is the absolute core insight. The person you're talking to, they're not actually trying to defeat you. They are fighting, sometimes desperately, to just feel seen and heard by you. The real fight isn't about being right. It's about a deep, human need for understanding. So if the battle is for understanding, not for victory, then our whole strategy has to change. And that brings us to the central idea, the big mindset shift that unlocks everything. It's about changing the entire goal of the conversation. Look at these two approaches. The winning mindset is all about you, your point being right. And where does that get you? Disconnected. But the unraveling mindset, it sees the disagreement like a tangled knot. The goal isn't to prove you're right, it's to work together to gently figure out the tangle. And that's where you find connection. Okay, that's the big idea. But how do you actually do it? Let's get practical. Here are 3 tools you can start using, like right now, to start unraveling those conversational knots. All right, tool number 1. This tackles the single biggest communication mistake we all make, assuming that our words land exactly the way we intend them to. We get so sidetracked arguing about how something was said that we forget what we were even talking about. So, you might think your intention is perfectly clear. You're in a loud place, so you raise your voice. To you, it's just a practical thing. But the other person, they hear aggression. They hear anger. And you have to remember, their perception is their reality. That's what you're dealing with. Simply asking, hey, what did you hear me say? Lets you hit pause, see that gap between intent and impact, and get things back on track. It's a huge deal. Okay, tool number 2. We all know that feeling. Someone says something that just gets under your skin, and your first instinct is to fire back, right? To defend yourself. But your most powerful move isn't a comeback. It's a pause. Here's why. That little 7-second pause is like magic. When that trigger hits, your defensive brain lights up instantly. But if you can just force yourself to take a deep breath, in those few seconds, your actual nervous system starts to calm down. You let their words just kind of fall to the ground. And then you can respond with control instead of just reacting. And what about when you need to reconnect with someone after there's been some distance? This 3-step framework is your key. And that second step, I'm not asking for an apology, is incredibly powerful. It just totally disarms the other person's defensiveness and opens a door they probably thought was locked for good. So we have the big idea and we have the tools. But what does this stuff actually look like in the messy, real world? Let's talk about some common scenarios. We have all been here. A parent gives you some advice that really feels like a judgment. Your gut reaction is probably to argue back. But what if you reframe it? Parental judgment is often just a clumsy way of showing love and care. So instead of responding to the criticism, respond to the care underneath it. Try saying, I can tell my well-being is really important to you. It completely changes the conversation. Being able to say no without feeling guilty is a superpower. The ineffective way is to make up excuses, because it just sounds weak. The effective way is to lead with a direct no, and if you need to explain, frame it as a promise you've made to yourself. It's amazing how few people will argue with a promise you've made to yourself. And this is so important to remember. When you start setting boundaries, some people might get upset. That discomfort doesn't mean you're wrong. It means the boundary is working. It's like the soreness you feel after a workout. It means you're building a new muscle, one that's going to bring you long-term peace. So all of these tools, this entire mindset, it's all building towards one ultimate skill. This is the most crucial thing in any healthy relationship, the art of repair. See, the goal is not to live in some fantasy world where you never argue. That's impossible. The true test of a strong relationship is how fast you can find your way back to each other after things go off the rails. And why does this matter so much? Because relationships don't usually end with one big blowout. They erode. They die from death by 1,000 paper cuts. All those hundreds of tiny moments where repair could have happened, but it didn't. At the end of the day, repair starts with validation. And here's the key. Validation is not agreement. You don't have to agree with their point to understand their feeling. Just saying I can see why you'd feel that way isn't you giving up. It's you building a bridge back to connection. And really, that's what it all comes down to. The next time you walk into a difficult conversation, ask yourself that question. Are you fighting the person or are you fighting the misunderstanding between you? When you shift your focus, you transform every argument into an opportunity, not to win, but to connect more deeply than you did before.